So, the fourth thing that causes us stress is our attachment. And it can be to anything. Physical objects, I'm attached to my money in my car. It can be physical things, I'm attached to my body. It can be emotional things, I'm attached to my kids. Intellectual things, I'm attached to my knowledge. You know how smart I am? I can be attached to my moral purity. I've been practicing spiritual disciplines for 20 years. I am morally pure. I can become attached to that moral purity. I get a sense of superiority. Do you know how clean I am inside compared to the likes of you people? I'm not. But I can become attached to anything. But to highlight this, we're just going to use one example of the parent-child relationship. But where it's parent-child, it can be anything. Attachment is mental bondage. If I'm attached to my child, essentially what it means is that I have love plus selfishness. This is what the definition of attachment is. So let's start with this word love. What is love?
You like someone.
You like someone, yeah?
So like a mother and a child, right?
Yes, mother and child has love. What makes it love?
Because it's affection. Usually if you like something, you love something, and you get the same from your child, you get that love back.
Potentially. But this is the manifestation of love. Because you may love you may love Mahatma Gandhi. You can't give him affection because he's no longer here, and he can't give it back.
It's an emotion.
It's an emotion. So is jealousy. What makes love love? So one of the ways another word that we often use when we're describing love is oneness or identification. Perhaps what we can say, love is the absence of separation, the absence of distinction and difference. So let's go back to the example of mother and child. When we say the mother loves the child, what it means is that there's a feeling of oneness. How many entities are there? The mother is holding her newborn child. How many entities are there? Not from the mother's perspective. From the mother's perspective, there's one. There is us. There is just this one unit made up of this person and this person, but there's just one of us. How many bodies do you have? Just one. But it's made up of this arm, and this lung, and this lung, and this heart, and this liver, and this foot, etc., etc., etc. It's made up of hundreds of thousands of different things. But there's only one body, right? Your body is one. There's me and my child. There's two of us? No. There's one of us. There was an example, I give this example, last time I was at the Vedanta Academy, we were having a group discussion. And one of the students was giving his explanation of a question that was asked, and he used the phrase, "We are a human being." Grammatically incorrect, so he corrected himself. Sorry, we are human beings. And I thought to myself, no, you had it right the first time. We are a human being. That grammatical inaccuracy is a beautiful way to describe what love is. We are one human being. We are one family. We are one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. So oneness. So oneness is always positive. We have this phrase, love hurts. No, love does not hurt. The problem is when we identify with my child's beautiful qualities and properties. She's a beautiful thing. The problem is not to appreciate and be one with that beauty. The problem is when my selfishness comes in and says, I want it for myself. She has these, you've seen it, when a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old walks into the room, it's like a vacuum for people's attention. And when that 4-year-old walks up to you, you haven't even asked her, she walks up to you and sits on your lap and starts playing with your ears and your hair. What does it feel like? It's glorious. Why? Because there's that beautiful quality of her pure emotions and she's sharing it with me. So this is the oneness, we feel it, but that beautiful quality, I want it again. And so the next time I see her, Why? Because I want it back. I want it. I want it. I want it. This is the selfish component. This is what turns it into attachment. So when that 4-year-old is now 14 years old, and I want to contact her and get her thoughts and her emotions, leave me alone. Push back. And so as a mother, what do? I don't like it being pushed back, so I pull a little harder. And as a 14-year-old, I don't like being pulled at, so I push a little harder. And this is where you get this conflict and this tension in the relationship. The conflict and the tension in the relationship between parent and child is because of attachment. Whose fault is it?
Mother's.
The parent's fault. You cannot blame the child, even if the child is attached to the parent. Because children don't have this knowledge. They don't have the intellectual capacity to know better. As adults, we do. But we don't exercise our knowledge to turn our attachment into love. So this is why we call it mental bondage, because if the person doesn't deliver to me the thing that I want, I feel unhappy. So let's use another example. Boy meets a girl for the first time. They go to a party or a social event and they chat and they talk. They laugh at each other's jokes and it seems like a pretty good time. They swap emails, swap phone numbers. Next day, the boy is sitting at the bus stop. What does his mind do? Off it goes towards the girl. Yeah. So what does he do? He says, "Now, I know you're not supposed to call the day after. The rules of dating, you wait at least 2 days. Who cares? Tap, 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 tap. Great time with you last night. Would you like to go out for coffee?" He waits and he waits and he waits. Beep, beep. No, me and my boyfriend are going to the... Me and my boyfriend are going to the... What happens to his emotional state? Crushed. You won't be needing this. Who would choose to be in that emotional state? Nobody. No one wants to be rejected. No one wants to be crushed. He has put himself in that position. He has handed the reins of control of his emotional state to somebody else. You can now determine whether you shoot me to the peaks of ecstasy by saying yes, or to the depths of sorrow by saying no. The control of my emotions is now in your hands. I've given it to you. We've lost our autonomy. It's bondage. Think of slavery. If you are a slave on the cotton plantation, you don't get to choose where you live, whom you marry, whether you even keep your own children. That's decided by something outside of you. This is slavery. Anytime we are attached to something, we have made ourselves slaves to the external world.
You cannot attach to anything.
What we are saying is, if you attach yourself to anything, that relationship will be fraught with conflict and you will suffer. If you want to attach yourself, go ahead. There's no do's or don'ts in this philosophy. There's no shoulds or should nots. You live your life however you want. If you want to attach yourself to your kids, go ahead. But don't expect that relationship to be harmonious. This is the diagnosis. What is the treatment? So do the math. If attachment equals love plus selfishness, how do we get love? Love equals attachment minus selfishness. It's as simple as that. However, simple does not mean easy. Try it. Find someone you are attached to. Your spouse, your children, whatever it happens to be. Try to practice reducing your selfishness on a consistent daily basis. Very, very difficult because of the mental habit that we've developed of allowing the mind to run selfishly towards that individual. But that's where these practices come in. So this is again where we have that idea that we were discussing earlier. When you look across the table at that person, and this becomes very difficult because we get so familiar with the people that we live with. Who is this person? Who is my wife? Who is she really? I think I know who she is. I've been living with her for 20 years, but I've got to remember that there's an aspect of her experience that I have zero access to. I don't really know what it's like to be her. What's it like to be her? Who is she? Be careful, because if you squint at your wife in half an hour across the table, she'll start to think you're going crazy, right? So be a little careful. But ask the question, who is this person? What are her demands? What are her needs? What's in her best interests? What's going to take her towards her genuine well-being, and what can I do to provide that, to support it and to nurture it? This is a long-term process, because our own attachments will make it difficult for us to answer this question. Familiarity breeds contempt. In fact, it's often easier to be unselfish with complete strangers than the people that we live with. Now, that sounds counterintuitive on the surface, but when you understand the nature of attachment, it makes perfect sense. It's easy to fall into that complacency. But this is the method nonetheless. How can I serve? What can I offer? What is this person experiencing, and what can I give? We must develop clarity of thinking if we're going to answer this question. I'll give you a good example. In fact, this example comes from the book called The Holocaust of Attachment. So our teacher knows this family. He counseled them in this. They live in Mumbai, and the only son, was a maths prodigy. It was his swadharma. It was his area of interest. He attained a scholarship to go and study in the United States, fully paid for. What was the parents' reaction? Their response? He's not going. He should be with us. He's our only son. He should be learning our values, our family within this culture. He's going to go to America, learn those values? No, thank you very much. It's in his best interests to stay here. Now, when we look at it from the outside, it's his nature. It's his natural expression. He's fantastic at it. He loves it. It's a fully paid scholarship to flourish in his field. How can you possibly deny him this? He should be with us. This is the attachment functioning. Now, what's really important to understand is, what does it feel like from the parent's perspective?
Attachments,
No.
no?
For the betterment of the
Exactly.
yeah.
They think it's better.
From their perspective, they're doing what they believe is in his best interests. When we're objective, we're not attached, we're not caught up in that whole situation. We recognize the best thing for the boy: go, flourish, grow. This is the danger of attachment. We will not recognize it as attachment, we will think it is love. Why am I doing this? Because I love my son. This is what I must question. Maybe I'm doing it because of my attachment. So this is a really important point that we need to understand, that our attachment to us does not feel like attachment. Our attachment to us feels like genuine love. And so this is the mistake that we often make. We confuse attachment as love. We don't really see it as love. So this is why he has the quote from one of the other texts: you need a powerful intellect to protect and preserve your love. Love is an emotion, as you said. It's a phenomenon in the mind. My mind resonates with your experience. That's oneness. How do you protect it? You need to make sure that that love doesn't get polluted by I want, I want, I want. How do we control that? It's the intellect's job to question, what am I thinking about? What's the quality and the nature of this thought? Is it serving my ego? The investigation into the qualities of our own mind is done by the intellect. And then when we recognize, I'm an engineer, my son's 17 years old, he's in his final year, I'm pushing him to become an engineer. I guess it's because I think it's in his best interest, but maybe it's just because I want a little carbon copy of me. I just want him to follow in my footsteps so that I feel that my life is being worthwhile because he's following the same path. Perhaps. That's enough. Just that doubt that what I'm feeling is not true. It might be true this much, but there's this much selfishness involved as well. So this is how we protect and preserve our love, is by questioning our own minds and asking, who is this boy? What is in his best interests? And what can I do to serve those interests? In the meantime, there's one other very, very important thing that we can do to help our relationships, and that is to borrow the intellect of somebody else. So someone whom you know doesn't have any skin in the game. So you call your sister who lives over in Sweden. You say, hey, Jack's just got this scholarship. I think he should stay with us. What do you reckon? Yeah, she genuinely cares about the boy. Of course she does. She loves him. And whether the boy's in America, India, Sweden, doesn't matter. It's all the same to her. So she's got nothing to gain or lose. She has his best interests. Listen to that. You know, sounds like you're kind of being a little selfish when you say he should stay with the family. So the important point is that we can borrow another person's intellect, but we must pick the right person. Don't pick somebody who's attached to you. Because what are they going to do? They're going to give you the answer that you want to hear. You need to find someone who's not afraid to say, look at you, selfish, get out of here. All right? Be willing to take a slap or two, and you'll take those with grace, because the reason you're going to borrow that person's intellect is because you want the best answer for the relationship. Thank you. Thank you for your criticism, etc. So this is another really important point to understand. But fundamentally, the essence of controlling these aspects is to reduce the selfish component. We do that by choosing a better thought. It is only the intellect that can distinguish between thoughts. The mind feels, the body acts, the intellect discriminates. It's its job, it's its function. So please use it. What am I thinking about? Why am I thinking it? Where is this thought going? So this is essentially what we've covered in the last couple of sessions. Likes and dislikes create stress because we develop expectations, thereby disappointment. The rambling mind creates stress because we get fatigue and frustration. Desire creates negative emotions and neutralization. Attachment creates conflict and separation. All of these causes contribute to our stress. We must develop our intellect and use it to protect and preserve our mental peace by redirecting the mind towards something higher. This is the essence of the practice. Redirect the mind towards the higher. Okay. Any questions?